Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? This is Jeremiah. We are having another webinar. This is one of our favorites, definitely one of my favorites. I've just been a computer geek my whole life. Come on. So obviously the hardware is always fun. And kind of every year it basically kind of gets easier and easier, but then there's always some challenges and things. So hardware's tough. So we enjoy doing this webinar every year because we just get so many people who ask us for our recommendations. So that's what you're going to get. A lot of experience behind our decisions here and things. But like I said, it kind of simplifying down. And the main thing of this webinar is to try to take all these weirdo goofball terms and trends and everything and boil it down to make it simple. So that's what we're doing today. Let's see, I got a couple housekeeping items here. We are recording this, so that'll be nice because you might want to revisit it. It'll be up on the website later today. And right now, though, it is live. We are here, so you may certainly have some questions. And so that is that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And I recommend you just click it now because what's nice is you get it situated on the screen so it doesn't distract you. And note that you're going to be able to see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes it a nice little companion, little interactivity while you're watching this webinar. So that's all my stuff. It's ready for Bennett to take us away.
Hey, well, thank you, Jack. Yeah, so hardware recommendations. We do these each year, but obviously new tech comes out, so it's always good to get a little refresher. So let's just go ahead and dive on in. If you've attended one of these in the last couple of years, you will have seen this mug before. Yeah, I'm not even sure how long I've been doing this at this point, so let's just take a look at what we're going to be covering today. So first up, we're going to look at the do's and don'ts when you're shopping for hardware. Obviously, there's things that you do want to try to do, and there's a lot of things that you don't want to do. Brief one is going to be like shopping at polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So we'll just go over a couple of those items. Next up, we're going to look at when to update or upgrade, and there we're referring to both software and hardware. There's a lot of new major OS operating system releases that just came out. We got Windows 11, Mac OS Monterey. So we're gonna touch on both of those and cover why you really should wait before moving on to either of those options. We're gonna look at some baseline hardware specs, essentially the hardware specifications that you need to be able to run our software. Realistically, more AutoCAD than our software, as our plugin is very lightweight, but I'm still going to cover that. Next up is systems worth thinking twice about. This has come up several times over the last couple of years. Basically, we're going to look at some machines that, while they can run AutoCAD, I definitely wouldn't recommend them for a daily driver for AutoCAD use, and we'll touch on that. Next is how to choose the right system. We're going to basically go over some checklist items, things that'll make your shopping experience a little bit easier. And then we're actually going to hop over to a couple manufacturers' websites and just kind of show you some quick ways to try to narrow your search down so that you can actually find a compatible system. And then last up, we have our recommended systems or some machines that we've looked at and said, yeah, these either meet a quality standard or a specification standard that we would run. So without further ado, let's just dive on in. All right, some do's and don'ts. I don't think those are actually words, but All right, first up, you're going to want to reference system requirements of your most critical applications. And I realize I'm literally saying what is on the screen, but that's my job. Any piece of software you buy, download, or install is going to have a list of the components your machine needs to have in order to run that properly. Whether that be, AutoCAD, Adobe, Microsoft Office. So anytime you're shopping for a computer, if you work from your computer, which, let's be honest, if you're here, most of us do, all of your most important applications, check with the manufacturer or the company that provides that software before you make any purchase decisions, and make sure that the one that you're looking at falls into those categories. Pick an operating system: Windows versus Mac OS. There is Linux, but I I really don't know anybody who uses Linux on a professional basis outside of programmers. And so just make sure you pick an operating system before you start shopping for hardware. It's already hard enough finding something when you're looking at one. But if you start looking for a machine and then start going wishy-washy on whether or not you want to try to change platforms, you're now doubling your search criteria. It makes it a mess. Decide on desktop versus laptop before you start shopping, or very early on. Again, that's just going to simplify your experience. Will you be purchasing in store or online? You've got caveats to both. In store, obviously, you have the option to see some of them on display, which kind of gives you a chance to check out the monitor if it's a laptop, or the size of it if it's a desktop. I mean, you can still check out the size if it's a laptop. A lot of higher power machines are going to be, or a lot of higher power laptops are going to be 17-inch or 15-inch. So that gives you an opportunity to say, all right, well, is the 15 going to be enough for me, or do I need the 17, or is the 17 going to be too big and heavy to really tote around with me? Personally, I opt for 15-inch laptops. The 17s are just they're bulky. They're bulky systems to lug around if you wander at all. Consider peripherals while you're shopping. A lot of new machines have transitioned to USB-C for a lot of their ports. Fortunately, in the Windows world, most laptops still offer a variety of ports, so it's not as big of an issue. But on the Mac side of things, they've transitioned almost entirely to USB-C. I think the brand new stuff that just came out added back in a USB-A. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember to consider peripherals when you're shopping for a machine, because you may have to change your video cables, your mice, keyboard, or you may just want to refresh things. Let's take a quick peek at some don'ts. The first one: don't jump on something because it's on sale. That one kind of rings home, because just because something is on sale doesn't mean that it's a great deal or that it's the right deal. Companies will put products on sale if they are trying to clear out stock for new inventory coming in, if they've got a design flaw and they're trying to get them off the shelves. Maybe, maybe it is just a good sale. But definitely do your research on the item, especially, well, I guess that makes it kind of tough right now because the inventory shortages and then sales come up. So still wouldn't jump on it if it's on sale. If you've already looked into that particular model and you know that that's what you want, then yeah, it's a good idea. Don't dive into a new platform and expect to not have teething issues. We're going to talk about Windows and Mac OS a lot. So if you are a longtime Windows user, don't plan on jumping into a new computer and changing over to Mac OS and expect to not have problems or frustrations trying to learn it. It's going to happen. You're teaching a dog new tricks, and it's going to be an interesting experience. It's also very easy to underspec the machine, especially when you're shopping on a budget. This happens more often than not if you are not referencing system requirements or system recommendations, or if you're shopping at the bottom end of that spectrum. It's very easy to underspec a machine, and these days, a lot more manufacturers have changed the way that they're building computers. We're going to touch on that next. So it's very important to make sure you spec the machine properly up front. Do not buy either the cheapest or the most expensive computer possible. Obviously, the cheapest computer, probably not going to be fantastic build quality, probably not going to meet system specifications. You should expect to have any machine you buy for anywhere from 2 to 4 years is a reasonable life expectancy for a computer. So don't buy the cheapest, and the same goes for the most expensive machine. Just because it is the most expensive computer you can find doesn't mean it's a good idea. I mean, some manufacturers charge more purely for the name. Razer is a company we're going to talk about later today. They are a premium brand, comparable. They're the most comparable brand to Apple in the Windows space, um, as of right now, and they do charge a premium for that. Definitely don't buy a machine without reading reviews. Do your research. Anytime I'm shopping for a computer, once I pick a model that I like, I spend several hours reading reviews from different sites, different companies to say, how's the battery life? How's the screen? How's the keyboard? And I look into it. What's the manufacturer like? What is their warranty process? How long is their warranty? Do your research. It's an expensive purchase. You're going to be using this probably every day. You want it to um, you want it to be a good purchase. Buy before you can try. That's a typo. That's supposed to say try before you buy. Um,
I love that. That's a
uh,
buy high, sell low.
exactly. That's basically to say, again, depending on where you're purchasing, if you're buying in a store or if you're buying online, it's a little bit tougher. But if you're buying in a store, especially um, some bigger box stores, will have display models. So you either have a chance to take a look at them on display, or some of them have good return policies. Let's hop over. So locally, we have Best Buy. They are probably the biggest electronics store we have in our area, and probably the only one of the only ones that has a decent selection of machines on display. Some areas have Micro Center. We unfortunately don't get one of those, but from what I'm told, they're excellent. Both of these stores have relatively similar return policies. So you can buy a laptop and you can use it for up to, I think you have a 14 or 15-day return policy, and you can bring it back. As long as it's not damaged, of course, you'll get your money back. Same thing with some direct manufacturers. Apple and Razer both offer a no questions asked 14-day return policy. So you can buy any machine from either of those manufacturers, use it, play around with it, see if it fits your workflow, see if you like the form factor, and if you don't, send it back. Full refund, no questions asked. Lenovo and Dell have similar return policies, but they do have a clause in there that says that they can or they may charge, I believe it's up to a 15 or 20% restocking fee. Um, when I actually just ordered a laptop from Lenovo, and I pinged them on that. And the rep I was talking to said there's no restocking fee for my particular order. So I would definitely recommend checking with them. I believe it applies more to custom orders or if you order a large number of laptops. But generally, when you're shopping for a computer for CAD use, you're going to be shopping in the 1,000 plus range. More likely than not, it's going to be around a $1,500 mark. So a 20% restocking fee on that, just to try it out, is yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit. So do your research, check with the manufacturer before you purchase, and just see if that's an option. All right, so when to update or upgrade. Like I said, a lot of major OS releases have come out recently. So right off the bat, let's touch on that. How comfortable are you being a beta tester? A brand new operating system to the market is brand new. The trial range is relatively limited. You're only going to get users who are signing up for the beta, and then the feedback that they get from that beta is how the final product comes out at initial launch. So update right away if you're able to take time away from your regular routines to self-diagnose new problems. Being a self-starter, being familiar with searching on forums and the net for random issues, it's pretty key. If you don't have pressing deadlines, that's a big one. I mean, I don't know about everybody else here, but most of the time got some deadlines on the docket. So I don't really have time to install a new OS and hope that everything goes smoothly. So sometimes it's just better to wait. If you don't get easily frustrated, it it's a new operating system, basically the backbone of your computer for everything you do. So you may find that a workflow that you've followed for the last 3, 4, 5 years no longer works. It's going to be a little bit frustrating. Also, make sure you have verified backups. When I say verified backups, that means you went through and tested the backup. You made sure that you can either restore the data, or if it's an image of the entire computer, restore the image to another drive, verify that it's bootable. You want to make sure that you have a failover in case things don't go quite according to plan. Our recommendation: always wait for the first few major patches. We're talking service packs for Windows. Mac OS doesn't really get service packs, they just do updates. But my general rule of thumb lately has been wait about 6 months. Again, you're going to want to wait at least about 6 months if you're not tech savvy or able to self-diagnose. If you have immediate deadlines, like most people do, or if you get easily frustrated or overwhelmed, if you're the type of person who runs into an issue and throws up your hands and just says, I can't deal with this, or I don't want to deal with this, do not update right away. It's not going to be a pleasant experience. And you should never do a major operating system upgrade if you don't have verified backups. Not just waiting about 6 months. You definitely want to have backups before you make any major change to your system. So this is a list of some of the early release bugs and issues that macOS Monterey has encountered since it came out. Time Machine stuck on backup. No, that's the built-in backup solution. Not your backup's not running. It's a little bit of an issue. Mac being slow after the update. That's kind of standard. Anytime you do a major update, Mac OS goes through and indexes all the files. Basically, it says this is where everything is so that your searches are fast, boots are fast, things like that. Mouse or trackpad input being laggy. That's a little bit more annoying. I know for a fact we have a knowledge base article for mouse cursor and AutoCAD being jittery or jumpy. That has steps to correct that issue. If your operating system now introduces its own laggy or jittery input, no amount of tweaking is going to fix that if it's from the operating system and it's waiting for an update. Wi-Fi not working. A little bit more of an annoyance if you're working on the go or you don't have a hardline connection. Bluetooth not working. Well, okay. I mean, I could deal with that unless you use Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth mouse or a Bluetooth keyboard, and it might be a problem. Mac cursor stuck. Well, okay, we just went from laggy input to no input. Okay. Battery starting to drain. That falls in line with being slow after the update. It's got to go through, reindex everything. It's going to use more power while it does that. So that eventually goes away. Hide my email not working. That's a Mac OS thing. Basically lets you sign up for stuff without actually providing your email. Mac won't shut down. At least it's already on, but still some software needs you to restart in order to finish installing or applying updates. So not shutting down, bit of a problem. Mac overheating after the upgrade. That's a bigger issue. Yeah, there's supposed to be software catches in place to stop your machine from overheating. That's likely going to go in line with the battery issue and the being slow, but still shouldn't overheat. Screensaver broken, minor nuisance. That's not really a problem. Now let's look at some of the early release issues that Windows 11 has had. First off, your computer can't upgrade to it. That's actually fairly common. Either your CPU is not compatible, which requires a hardware change, or you have no TPM 2.0 module. That's a trusted platform module, and basically it's a piece of hardware that says, when you're booting to your hard drive, it is actually your computer you're booting to. Again, those I believe you can add as a USB device, so not super critical. You could have a Windows 10 update interrupt your Windows 11 upgrade. That's pretty bad because that could basically render you inoperable, because in the middle of completely changing your OS, it installs an update for the previous OS. Now, I personally haven't run into that, so don't know, but it seems like it could be a bit of a problem. Windows 11 causing slowdowns for your internet. That's more than likely going to be just Windows reaching out and pulling down all these updates, driver updates, things like that. Should fix itself over time. 11 still has this 10 start menu. Minor nuisance, not a big issue. Start menu won't let you type. That's a little bit more annoying. I haven't really navigated Windows without searching in the start menu since Windows 7. So basically, I open the start menu, and if I want control panel, I just type control panel. Or if I want an application, I type the application's name. It's so much faster than trying to remember where it is in their UI or where this update moved it to. So not being able to type, a little bit annoying. Context menu loading slowly, that's your right click menu. So may not be a big issue, but I don't know about you guys. I right click a lot. And if there was an added 2 to 3 second delay between every right click, my day is going to get so much more frustrating. Not going to have a great time. Black screen issue. That's a bit more of a deal breaker. You can't really use your computer if you're stuck at a black screen. So that one might be worth waiting for. Error completing the installation. Kind of similar to the 10 update interrupting the upgrade. You could basically just get stuck in a loop of it going through its final installing stages and then kicking you out and reverting and rinse and repeat. VirtualBox not working. Now that's a virtualization software. So here in our office, we're a Mac office, we run virtual Windows machines. If you run your CAD out of a virtual Windows box, I don't know anybody who does this, but if you run your CAD out of a virtual Windows box and your virtual machine no longer works after the upgrade, you're kind of dead in the water. You got Wi-Fi and Ethernet adapter problems. I actually did a little bit of digging on that. That really depends on the hardware, but it can, if you have like the Intel killer network stuff, it can basically render your Ethernet completely useless, which if you don't have Wi-Fi, I mean, almost everything is web-based these days. So that could be a pretty major issue. File Explorer memory leak. That's basically, it slowly eats up more and more RAM. It's supposed to release its resources when you close it, but they're finding that it's not. So it's not a huge issue because File Explorer already uses almost nothing, but it is there. If you have an AMD computer, your processor could be 10 to 25% slower just from the upgrade. That is, they've already confirmed that. That's a software issue. They may have already actually patched it, but it was a major issue at first launch. USB printer problems. I mean, let's be honest. Who doesn't have problems with their USB printer? That kind of comes with the territory. So, non-ASCSI character issues. That's more going to be from a development type side, but you may find that some of your applications text either doesn't read right or it's completely jarbled. These are all things you might run into. This is just, I mean, it's not really a quick preview, but I mentioned that we're a Mac office. We use Parallels. Every time there's a new version of Mac OS that comes out, there are some major issues between Parallels and Mac OS. We run Windows, therefore AutoCAD, in a virtual machine using Parallels. Some of these are not too annoying. I know Jeremiah uses coherence mode. That's this first one here. Basically, it makes your Windows applications look like they're running as native Mac applications, so you don't have to go into a window, basically. This problem basically said your apps may launch in full screen or they may launch kind of small, but you can't resize them. That would drive me nuts. If I opened AutoCAD and it opened up as a little tiny square on my monitor and I couldn't, drag and drop it, yeah, I might get a little bit frustrated. Fortunately, that one's been fixed. Parallels desktop hangs on starting. Again, that's a piece of software that you need and it just sticks. That's kind of been an ongoing issue with every major update though. So kind of get used to that one. Installation assistant, really, if you're just migrating from boot camp, not many people are. So not that big of an issue. Not being able to drag and drop, that one's been fixed. And if you're running a big Sur virtual machine, nobody does this. For some reason, Mac OS virtual machines, like if you run a virtual machine of Mac OS, terrible performance. Like the last one I set up took like 30 minutes to boot. It was awful. All right, so let's take a look at M1 Max. This is a very hot topic these days because obviously Apple has transitioned almost their entire lineup over to M1 products. Are they supported? No. Simple, clean and cut answer. They require Windows for ARM because they are an ARM architecture processor. It's that's not even out yet. It's in release candidate, pre-release. It's a beta, basically. It's not officially supported. Autodesk likely won't officially support it until 2023 comes out. If they do at that time, there's no guarantee. We don't know. Um, so what that means is while it may work, it's not guaranteed. You may run into unexpected problems that may not have a solution. You know, it's a beta operating system. It's you can't even download it. You have to jump through a bunch of hoops to even get it. Um, it's still in pre-release. All of your support, if you're running Windows for ARM, is via forums. You get no phone number to call. You can't go direct to Microsoft. Uh, it's you basically, if you run into an issue, uh, it could be with a piece of software you have just absolutely refuses to launch. That's fairly common. You basically have to go to the forum, you create a new thread, you post it up, and you have to wait for more people to pop in and say, oh yeah, I have this problem too. And then hope that a Microsoft rep sees that and says, huh, all right, well, I guess this is worth looking into. And then they may or may not get a solution to you, or they may come back and say, this is planned to be fixed in the official release. When is the official release? There's no date. So you might be stuck with a computer that can't run a piece of software you need for an indeterminate amount of time. There's also no real way to reinstall Windows if you're running Windows 10 for ARM. I do have an M1 Mac on hand that I'm testing with. And the way that you set up this Windows 10 for ARM is you basically download a virtual hard disk, which is a pre-configured computer. There's no installation process. You attach it as like a disk, as a flash drive, essentially, to a piece of software, and you boot the computer. So there's no way to like reset it or go through the initial setup. So you don't get a chance to turn off any tracking stuff. Obviously, you can go in and turn off any of that after the fact, but these are all very important factors if you're considering an M1 Mac or any device running ARM. We'll touch on a Windows one in a little bit. A big issue right now is there is no local data for the LandFX plugin if you are using Windows for ARM. The Microsoft components that are required for local data to work do not work. We're actively testing for a workaround, but at the moment, your only option is to use cloud data if you're using an M1 Mac, or not an M1 Mac specifically, Windows 10 for ARM. So something definitely worth keeping in mind. All right, we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes. Covered some very important factors with everything coming up. But let's take a look at some recommended specs. Fortunately, this hasn't changed very much, if at all. Your operating system, Windows 10. That's it. Processor, 3+ gigahertz. Pretty basic these days. I mean, I'm pretty sure even Chromebooks come with processors this fast. Do not buy a Chromebook, please, for CAD use. They're not, no, it's not. You'll be returning it so fast and probably paying a restocking. Memory or RAM, 16 gigs, pretty standard. 8 gigs comes on almost any machine that's going to be capable of running AutoCAD. 16 gigs is a small upgrade. Highly recommend it. I have been on a phone call with a client who was having an issue with some jitterness. That's not a word. Jittery mouse behavior in CAD. And the only way that he could get rid of it was to bump the memory capacity on his virtual machine to 12 gigs. Anything below 12 gigs, and he had a jittery issue. So 16 gigs, not an expensive upgrade. Most machines are going to be anywhere from $100 to $150 to bump that up if you even have to bump it. Display resolution, 1080p to 4K. These are Autodesk's recommendations. Honestly, these days, if you're working on anything that is below 1080p, I am so sorry. That's not a pleasant experience. 4K is going to make everything text-wise look very crisp, but you are going to have to play a balancing act between your display resolution and font scaling. 4K has a lot of pixels, itty bitty little pixels. So everything gets very small. Graphics card memory, the actual graphics card itself is not as important as the amount of RAM you have. Almost any graphics card on the market that has 4 gigs of RAM, almost any new graphics card on the market that has 4 gigs of RAM will be more than sufficient. Don't go find a graphics card from the 90s that has 4 gigs of RAM. It's not gonna be great. The disk space requirement, 10 gigs for AutoCAD. That is for AutoCAD only. Minimum drive size you're going to find on anything is going to be 256 gigabytes. Don't buy that. Go with 512 minimum, 1 terabyte standard. But for the software, you only need 10 gigs. Now, why aren't we talking about minimum specs? You really don't want to buy a computer at the minimum spec range of the spectrum. I mean, you're still going to be buying a machine at around $1,000. And how long do you want the computer to last before you have to do this again? Anytime I'm shopping for a computer, I spend hours, days researching. I don't want to do that every year. It's not fun. It's frustrating. It's annoying. I actually stopped recommending one of the manufacturers we recommended last year because their website is such a nightmare to try to navigate. We are going to hop over to a couple of websites here in a bit, just kind of show you some ways to narrow the field, and that's kind of important. So stay on the recommended end of the spectrum. Your machine will last longer. You'll be happier. Another reason we don't recommend minimum specs, a lot of manufacturers are moving to direct soldered components. This allows them to make tighter tolerances, lower power consumption because there's less resistance in the components, and they can make thinner and lighter computers. It does bring some cons, obviously. Not upgradable, not serviceable. If your RAM fails and it's a direct soldered component, the entire motherboard or logic board has to be replaced. This is most common on Apple machines. They've been doing direct soldered memory for. I had a 2013 MacBook that had a RAM stick fail on it. Had to have the whole logic board replaced. That was a $1,300 repair for a piece of RAM. Fortunately, it was covered under warranty, so it didn't cost me anything. So yeah. On the bright side, direct solder components primarily only affect laptops. So if you are a desktop owner or you prefer to stick with the desktop world, this really isn't an issue. Now, why do we only recommend Windows 10? Well, fact of the matter, Windows 7 is dead. It came out in 2009. It reached end of life January of 2020. End of life means they don't get any more security updates and vulnerabilities are not patched. There are a ton of vulnerabilities out there. They're essentially like backdoors into the computer. And once an operating system reaches end of life, those don't get patched anymore. So once they're announced on the internet, anybody who is talented enough to exploit those vulnerabilities has a backdoor into any computer running that operating system. So Windows 7 out, Windows 8, 8.1. If you're still using those today, why? Windows 10 has been out for a long time. It is a free upgrade from Windows 8 and 8.1. 8 was one of the worst operating systems I've used in recent years. Microsoft has a tendency to do that. So Windows XP was great. Windows 2000, it wasn't as bad as Millennium. Those were two different products. It wasn't bad as Millennium, but it was bad. Windows Vista, hot garbage. I had to reinstall that thing every 6 months. Windows 7, great. 8, 8.1, bad. 10, good. 11, we don't know yet. But Windows 8 and 8.1 is approaching its end of life. If you're still on it, it's a free upgrade to 10. Although with Windows 11 out, it may be worth holding off for 6 months, seeing how that pans out, and then deciding if you want to upgrade to 10 or 11. But either one should be a free upgrade. Okay, so systems worth thinking twice about. I did touch on this briefly about those thin and lightweight machines. And we're primarily talking about the Surface family of products, and we're talking about the Surface Pros. Uh, we do have some clients running these. I do personally actually have a Surface Pro 7. I have that same machine, and I like it because it's thin, it's lightweight, it's portable, it's got a touch screen. It's very easy to just grab it and run out the door when I got to go somewhere. Uh, Pros, obviously, that they're thin and lightweight, highly portable, easy to take with you. Cons, they are low power. They're not designed for heavy computing. They have a very low thermal ceiling. Mine has thermally shut itself down in the middle of installing Windows updates. Like pops up a big old message in the center of the screen that looks like a thermometer, and the thing just shuts off. Not fantastic. Fortunately, it booted back up and finished its updates, but it was just installing updates. I wasn't designing in CAD. Also, I wouldn't recommend designing in CAD on these. The screen is so tiny. They have no discrete GPU, which is a requirement for CAD. So while they may work with CAD, it's not going to be a fantastic experience. And once you start opening bigger files, you're going to find that components in the drawing turn off as you pan out, zoom, or as you zoom out. Panning is going to be slow. It's not going to be fun. It's okay for like looking at a drawing on site and kind of viewing it, but I would not recommend it for a daily driver. The Surface Pro 8, basically the same as the 7. They did a refresh. The picture's the same because it's actually surprisingly difficult to find royalty-free pictures of specific products. But they made thinner bezels, same form factor though. They did add 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. That's fantastic. We're going to talk about Thunderbolt in a second, but fantastic tech. Improves expandability. Basically, you can have a single port that can do display, power, USB for peripherals, things like that. It's very useful. Surface Pro X. This guy's actually been out for a little bit. Surface Pro 8 just launched. I'll let that sink in. I don't think Microsoft knows how numbers work, but this one got even thinner bezels. It has a proprietary Microsoft SQ processor family. Cons, it's ARM. It's just like M1 Max, which means it runs on Windows 10 for ARM. So it has all the same problems with Windows as M1 Max. On top of that, it has had ongoing app compatibility issues since launch. A lot of apps these days are 64-bit, and they don't translate over to ARM well. It has no Thunderbolt 4 ports. It's expensive, and it's slower than its Intel counterparts. The SQ processor has not been met with good reviews. So I would just avoid that flat out. All right, how to choose the right system. This is going to be kind of like a guidelines when you're shopping, basically just something to try to help you have a better experience. Keep it simple. There's all kinds of different technologies out these days, especially with Thunderbolt out there. There's something called eGPUs or external graphics units. While they do work and you can expand the functionality of a very small system like a Surface, it's complicated. It adds additional parts. It's not without bugs. I did test an eGPU with a Windows box a couple of years ago, and every time I plugged it in, my computer blue screened. So simple is better. Buy a computer with a graphics card in it. Set a realistic budget. You are shopping for a computer that you're going to be using almost every day for designing. You know, it don't plan on trying to find something sub $1,000. There are some options out there for sure, but the build quality is not going to be up to par. Specs aren't going to be as good. They're not going to last as long. You want it to last for 2 to 4 years. If you're going to be working from multiple locations, go with one laptop versus multiple machines, like a low power laptop for mobility and a desktop. Anytime you add multiple machines, you have multiple points of failure. You have twice the expense, twice the potential warranty claims, twice the data to back up, and twice the components to keep track of. It's not fun. Product warranty is important. Keep that in mind when you are picking a device. Make sure you shop from a company that has a good warranty. And know what platform you want, Mac OS versus Windows, before going in. It's just going to simplify things. When you actually do your shopping, make a checklist of what you need. You need your CPU, your processor to be plus 3 GHz, 16 gigs of RAM. Storage, we'll cover next. But definitely keep that on the list. You need a discrete graphics card with 4 gigs of RAM and your adapters for your peripherals. USB to C, USB A, like we were talking about. A lot of machines have transitioned to those. Something to keep in mind. For your storage size, if you're on a Windows box, open your File Explorer, go to your PC, and check your primary disk or your C drive. If you have multiple disks in your computer, consider combining them for simplicity's sake. I don't know about you, but it's the most frustrating thing trying to find a file on my computer and going, well, is it on this drive or is it on this drive? Or do I install this app over here or do I install it over here? We're coming back to that simplicity thing. Keep it simple. If you're over half of your storage capacity used, when you buy your new computer, you need to move up to the next size. If you're currently a 500 gig drive, you need to move up to a 1 TB. If you're a 1 TB, you need to move to a 2 TB. Fortunately, storage has gotten, or solid state storage has gotten insanely cheap. So that's not a big expense. Same thing for Macs, just a different method of getting there. Hit your Apple button, go to About Your Mac, check your storage tab, and see what you're at. Same concept. If you're over half your use or half available storage, it's time to move up. All right. Now we're going to take a quick look at some systems that we recommend. We did touch briefly on Thunderbolt before we dive into these computers, because every computer that made the list this time has Thunderbolt. It is a single connection, so you can, especially if you're on a laptop, you can take one cable from your computer to a Thunderbolt dock, and that Thunderbolt dock will send video out to multiple displays. I think the standard right now is they can run two 4K displays at 60 hertz, and at that point, it's a bandwidth limitation for a single connection. So you can run two displays. You can have your keyboard and mouse plugged into it. You could have other additional USB accessories, Ethernet. Basically anything you can plug into your computer can be plugged to a Thunderbolt dock. So it makes it very easy to be hopping around. You can also daisy chain Thunderbolt devices. I think the daisy chain is up to something crazy like 10 additional devices. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But so you can have a Thunderbolt hard drive dock, Thunderbolt RAID station. I don't know. Go crazy. Thunderbolt. Downsides to it, it's almost non-existent on AMD systems. It is licensed by Intel. So if you are shopping for AMD or you do prefer the AMD platform, it's going to be a little bit tougher to find one that has Thunderbolt if you want it. They do exist. They're just not common. And most websites don't have a way of filtering that down. So the first systems that we actually like, these have made the list before, the Dell XPS 15 and 17-inch product families. They're some of the more premier ultrabooks that actually meet system requirements. They are thin and lightweight. They're very highly rated. They've got good build quality, and they have a discrete graphics card. That's the biggest component when you're using CAD. You need a discrete graphics card. They also have good display options, and they have 2-in-1 options. If you're a fan of the touchscreen or the tablets, or you want one of those computers that, the screen flips around 360 degrees so you can draw on it or whatever, the Dell XPS family does have options for that. Downsides to these is that, well, they're thin and lightweight, so they have lower thermal headroom than some of the competitors, purely because they just can't exhaust heat as quickly, and they favor form over higher powered. So they're going to have a little bit lower power components in them compared to, say, a 17-inch laptop with big, thick vents on it. Something that looks like a textbook. It's going to be able to squeeze out a bit more performance. But price range is comfortable, 1,500 to 2,500, depending on the spec. These are off the shelf models. Obviously, if you go in and customize it and you add multiple 2 terabyte solid state drives and 32 gigs of RAM, I'm sure you can exceed 2,500. But for an off the shelf unit, those are the prices you're going to be looking at. They have good port options. They're nice computers. Next up, we got the Razer Blade family. These guys are new this year, so they are considered the Apple of the Windows world. You can't see it, but I did air quotes. Um, in the past, they've gotten some flack for their quality. They did way back in the day, like early mid 2000s. They made good stuff, and then they had a span of time where they started cutting corners. But in recent years, they're actually being reviewed as having similar warranty and customer support uh, on par with Apple. So that's a good thing. I've out of all of my support experiences, Dell in the PC world has been up there. Apple is second to none as far as getting warranty work taken care of. You either walk into the store and they take it and you get it back in a couple of days, or you mail it in, you get it cut back in a couple of days. Dell will actually send somebody out to your house and swap parts if they can. So Razer has actually been beating out Dell in customer experience reviews. So they are very highly rated. They follow a similar form. They're basically a clone of the MacBook, if you will. They're aluminum unibody, very lightweight. They do have a discrete graphics card. It's going to be the same situation as the Dell XPS. You know, they're favoring thin and lightweight and compact, so they're not going to be as high power, but they are still very capable machines. And they're very subtle aesthetics for a gaming system. The little logo there on the lid does light up. I have no idea if you can turn that off, but they don't have super flashy RGBs like the next computer we're going to look at. Same cons as the Dell XPS, lower thermal headroom, yada, yada. They can also get quite pricey. Like I said, they are a premium brand, so you will be paying for the brand. Next up on the list is the Lenovo Legion series. These are also gaming machines, but they are very highly rated machines. These have bigger vents, so they prioritize performance more than the Razer or the Dell XPS. They're still very small. I've actually been actually just ordered one of these. And when I was comparing it to other products like the Dell Alienware lineup and the Razer lineup, these are very close in size to the MacBook 15 or the Dell XPS. They're just slightly bigger, but they do have more thermal headroom as opposed to some of the other offerings on the market that are significantly larger. I think the Alienware X17 is over 7 pounds, and that's a big honking machine to be lugging around. It does have a lot of RGB LEDs. Fortunately, you can turn them off, but it is something that's annoying. Downsides: the software to control the RGB lighting causes significant battery drain. And when I say significant, you can expect about 2 to 2.5 hours of battery life. Not great, not fantastic. But uninstall that software, you get about 6.5, 7. So yeah, significant. The AMD variants of this laptop, they do have both. So Lenovo does offer AMD versions. They're a little bit cheaper, better battery life, no Thunderbolt, and then they had the Intel ones. A little bit less battery life, not terrible, and they do have Thunderbolt 4. One thing I will mention about Lenovo specifically is that they do have one of the better value extended warranties. I think they were for a 4-year extended warranty, which is important because almost every manufacturer only includes a 1-year warranty with your new machine. And if you're going to keep it for 2 to 4 years, you're going to want an extended warranty. I think the Lenovo with a 4-year extended warranty, accidental damage protection, battery protection, all that kind of stuff, I think it was like $240. Razer was $300, and I think Alienware was almost $400. And Razer and Alienware were both 3 years, not 4. So Lenovo's extended warranty is actually pretty solid. Let's take a quick peek at some monitor suggestions. Obviously, this just looks like a wall of text because, well, it is. They're not very creative with monitor names. What can I say? Going from left to right, far left is a Quad HD 1440p monitor, higher than 1080. but it's not like break the bank. So it's not going to require a super powerful machine to run it. All of these monitors, and this is the issue with the monitor market, nothing is super clear. Any manufacturer you go look at is going to have so many different options, and it's going to be confusing as all get out. So you really got to dig in, or just Google best monitors for this use case or best monitor at this resolution, and somebody will have done reviews of 5, 10, 15 different monitors and said, well, I like this one the best, and then you can pick one like that. Makes it easy. All these monitors have similar inputs. The main differences is the resolution and the color accuracy. So that's all these percentages. So far left, 1440p monitor, you can see that it's almost the same price as the middle one. That is a 4K monitor. The 4K monitor is a much higher resolution. The difference is the color accuracy, which is only going to come into play if you, well, it only really matters if you're working in the video production industry. If you make movies or animations, or if you do photo editing, things like that, the color accuracy is important. Basically, the color accuracy says that the color that you're seeing on your screen is the same color that would come out on a perfectly calibrated display. So if it ever made it to cinema, or if you sent it over to somebody else who needed to do some finishing work, they wouldn't get it, and your red was actually more of a magenta. It also just makes things look nicer. But if you go all the way to the far right, so you've got a 4K monitor, just like the middle one, at 3 times the cost. And 100% of that expense is your color accuracy. So not only is it 100% sRGB, by the way, I have no idea what that means. It is also 100% Adobe RGB color accurate. That's a big one for production industry. And then it's also 98% DCI P3. Yeah, basically, there's a lot of monitors out there. 27 is the industry standard, especially in general office use, because it's very easy to get 2 of them side by side. Gives you a lot of real estate. There's also other options on the market now. Samsung has multiple 49-inch monitors available. These things are massive. They're huge. It's the equivalent to having 2 27-inch monitors side by side on one display. So you've got no bezel in the center. They do have some fancy options software-wise. They support picture-in-picture and picture-by-picture. And they accept multiple inputs. So you can either take multiple cables from your computer to the monitor, and it'll cut it down the middle. So you basically have 2 27 inches if you prefer that. Or you can take an input from, say, a tablet and an input from your computer, and it can put either one of them in a little box on a location of your choice, or it can put them side by side like 2 separate monitors. So there's tons. There are so many monitor options in the market. It's purely a matter of personal preference. But me personally, I prefer the 49. It's totally different experience. It is so much easier to set up your display the way that you want. But they do have their software issues. They've had some firmware problems, but not the end of the world. Mice, kind of standard these days. We are a bit of a Logitech house over here. Most of the team is running the MX Master 3, or at least some of them are. It works on any surface. If you have a glass desk and you don't want a mouse pad, it will work. They do have a thing called mag speed scrolling, which is kind of cool. Basically, there's a button that unlocks the scroll wheel, so you can zoom around your websites if you want to. Also, some websites are just really slow to scroll, so that is a nice feature to have. All of these mice work wired or wireless. They all use Logitech's little USB dongle thing. I believe they also work over Bluetooth if you don't want to use that. And they all offer the ability to move between multiple machines, so you can pair them with multiple computers and just press a button to switch between them, which is helpful if you have a work computer and a home computer. That way you don't have to either keep unplugging things or repairing it, or doing whatever. The one thing to note is the 2 on the left are ergo mice. So the vertical mouse is in like a neutral hand holding position. It's supposed to be better for long-term use. And then the ergo the MX Ergo is a trackball mouse. So it's the same thing. It's got a little bit of a tilt to it to give you a neutral wrist position. And then it's a trackball. So you don't move the mouse around, you scroll your thumb with a giant trackball. Some people prefer the trackball, some people prefer regular mice. I will say a few things I've heard about the vertical one is it's less accurate because of the hand position. So something to keep in mind. But honestly, any of these are great mice. So they are wired or wireless, so you can use them plugged in over USB. If you use them over wireless, they have ridiculous battery life. Like, I actually, Jared, I don't know. Do you use one of these?
No, I've got the little what is it? The little one that's like the travel Logitech Bluetooth.
Hmm,
They don't say what model it is on it, so I always forget. But it's like the M5 or something like that. But it's a smaller one, and I ended up basically because going between desktop and then a travel event or work event, going back and forth, I go, I don't like having two different mice, and so it's like I liked the smaller mouse for travel, and now I like the smaller mouse. So what do you know?
well, that's the important thing is that it is all personal preference. You
Hmm.
know, anybody attending this may find that they don't like any of the suggestions that we've made.
But
That
yeah, but I,
happens.
I I think my biggest preference with mice is just simply Bluetooth. That a wired mouse is just I can't handle it. I'm like, it feels so heavy. It's like there's this. It's like it's got an anchor that's dragging it away.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I will definitely say that I do not, and I do not take a wired mouse with me if I'm traveling. That's an absolute nightmare. And then Bluetooth has the added benefit of not requiring that stupid little dongle.
Exactly.
So similar thing with keyboards. It's again personal preference. The Logitech Ergo far left K860. It's an interesting shape. Like the center of it is raised and it's kind of split. So your hands kind of curve away from each other. Your index finger points towards each other, and your wrists kind of move away, and that results in a more natural shoulder position. These are supposed to reduce strain over longer use periods. And I mean, if you work at the computer every day, you fall into that category. The two Logitechs are wireless. They're both ergonomic keyboards. The K860 is a little bit more refined. The 350 is a bit more basic, but it's still an ergonomic curve. It doesn't have as ridiculous of a curve to it. The Mistel Baracco, I actually have one of those. I haven't used it in a long time. It is a completely split design. So you have one half of the keyboard is its own unit, the other half is another one. They're connected by a cable, and that allows you to set the spacing for each side to your preference. So a you're able to set up your shoulder position perfectly to your body. Now, that's not to say that it does not have its issues. It's an interesting beast. So peripherals are purely a personal preference thing. Um, let's hop over and take a quick peek at let's take a quick peek at Dell really quick and just see what it looks like, or look at a quick way to kind of narrow your search, because I know that that's a big annoyance when you're shopping for a computer, is trying to figure out which ones actually work or which ones you need, because I mean, let's be honest, uh, most people, I just want a laptop. Which which one of these do I need? In its current state, Dell's website makes this a little bit easier because they do kind of spell out what each product line is for right here on the main page. But what you want to look for is the filtering options. It's a lot easier. We're not super concerned about the processor just yet, or the generation. Honestly, most people ain't going to care about the generation. Newer is the obviously the new fancy thing, but the performance gap between 11th and 10th gen Intel, as an example, is, I think it was like 15%, not a huge difference. 11th gen did bring Thunderbolt 4 versus Thunderbolt 3. The bandwidth is exactly the same, so that didn't change. That I wouldn't worry about Intel Evo. It's still Intel Evo is still Intel. It's not a different family. It's a standard. They basically go through and they match displays to keyboards to processors to yeah. We want graphics. This is the key component with a CAD station. You need a discrete GPU. Yeah, do not get a Chromebook. Don't. You need a discrete graphics card. It doesn't matter if it's a RTX 3080 or a 3060 or any of that. Basically, we just want either NVIDIA graphics or AMD graphics. Either one is fine. This is AMD graphics, but it's AMD graphics built into the processor. So that's a no-go. You know what? That doesn't make things easy. And that's the issue. Every website is different. Let's just turn that off then. Okay. So all 74 machines on this page should meet at minimum the minimum specs. So you've got a 4 gig graphics card. Perfect. That meets the minimum specs. It's only got an 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig drive. So you're going to need to bump that up. So it's $699 now because it is $300 off. Oh yeah, it's Black Friday. What a time to be shopping for a system, right? So yeah, any website you go to, look for the filtering option. It's going to give you a really quick way to shrink your what's the word I'm looking for? Sample size. It's gonna give you a really quick way to shrink your sample size so you're looking at systems that actually will work. So then you can actually focus on picking one you like, which at that point is purely personal preference. Whether you like the shape of the machine, the colors, the whatever, the price. Same thing with Razer. Now, Razer's a no, oh my gosh. I can type, I promise. Razer is a gaming company, so they're going to be all about this stupid RGB nonsense everywhere. Hate it. But you have a compare option at the top. Blade 14 does meet the specifications. It is a little bit smaller than Blade 15, obviously. It does have a discrete graphics card. I don't want $10 off. Leave me alone. But it doesn't have Thunderbolt. So if Thunderbolt's not important to you and you value the portability and you don't mind going to a smaller display, the Blade 14 could work. But you don't have Thunderbolt. It has less battery life than the Blade 15 and the Blade 17. Something to keep in mind. But these guys do the same thing. You can hop over and already they have the filters applied for the most recent graphics card family, but you can come in and reselect, or you can select any of these. Quadro is actually for CAD use. So GeForce is a gaming graphics card. Quadro is a production graphics card. And basically the difference is, well, some compute power, but also AutoCAD goes through and tests the drivers and says, yep, this is good to go. But you can see that it carries a hefty premium. So something to keep in mind. Most manufacturers are going to offer Quadro machines as well. And so the options are there. You don't really need it for the most part. I mean, for CAD use, you really don't need it, but it is an option either way. Let's see.
It's just too bad that the compared to Apple, of course, it's just the simplicity of navigating the Apple model line,
Oh yeah.
especially now the new M chips that you can get, the highest end configuration and the lowest end model. So it's like, well, there you go.
Don't buy an M chip.
I know. Well, once they're supported, I mean, so so looking forward to next year, it's going to be pretty cool.
So MSI was a company we had on here last year. And okay, so we can do NVIDIA wait, what's professional? Ooh. Those
Those
look
look
fancy.
those look expensive.
Yeah. Okay, so these ones only come with oh, that's weird. So their workstations only offer these guys. See, and this is why it's so much fun shopping for a computer, especially when you're not sure which brand you're going to go with, because every single website is so different in the way that they organize it and try to let you narrow the field.
Yeah,
Let's see if they do the same
it's a
thing.
real pain.
Well, the last time I was looking at these, um, when you actually tried looking at the specifications to see which one they are, yeah, they do this. They list
Uh,
everything in this giant wall of text, and
That's, I
there's
don't know,
like,
something.
but most of the time there's like 11 versions.
Oh,
This might be different because these are workstations, not gaming machines. But either way, it was just meant to be an example of the different ways that the manufacturers set up their sorting systems.
hmm.
But that's about it. I mean, that's not about it. That is it. Thank you everyone for joining us. Remember, the systems that we covered here are personal preference, but the guidance should still help you track one down. It is all just still suggestions. But if you have any questions, or if you are running into any performance issues or anything like that, you can always reach out, give us a call, shoot us an email. We are here most of the time.
Yeah, get your
And
shopping list ready. Get your letter to Santa ready, and good luck
Santa
dealing
bring
with the
electronics.
chip shortage and the shipping crisis. It's also just a horrible time to have to be buying anything, frankly. In
It
about
really
6
is.
months, things are going to be a heck of a lot better.
That's what they said last year in February.
Well, but then I don't know. Anyway,
Mhm.
but yeah, um, as always, everybody, have a fantastic and fun and safe weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.